Visit licensuraexams.com and try our samples completely free of charge.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Linton Hutchinson.
And I'm Eric Twachman. And I was looking at the old mailbag today, and Katie, a regular listener who must be frozen by now because she's living in Gloucester, Massachusetts, sorry, is studying for her licensure exam. And she emailed about a therapy that she'd never heard of before about her graduate counseling program and asked for some clarification. So we're excited to talk with you today about something that's really changing the approach in mental health care, the FlexCare model.
Well, before we jump into the deep end of the pool, let's break down the FlexCare model actually and what it is. Simply put, it's a dynamic approach to mental health care that adapts to each client's unique needs, circumstances, and preferences. Think of it as a customizable treatment plan that can shift and change as your client does.
Righto. It's like having a GPS on your phone that recalculates the route whenever you need it, making sure that your client reaches their mental health goals in the way that works best for them.
You know what's really awesome about this model is?
Hmm.
It shows up differently for each client. Sometimes it might mean offering both in-person and online sessions, or adjusting how often you meet based on what is happening right then and there in their lives.
Right. And it's not just about session format. You might find yourself working with a team that expands or shrinks depending on what your client needs. One week you might be coordinating with their primary care doctor, and then the next you're bringing in a nutritionist or a career counselor.
Let's walk through how this actually works. First up is the initial assessment phase, but don't let the formal name fool you. It's really just about getting to know your client, understanding their situation, and figuring out what matters most to them.
Right, like being a detective, but in a friendly way. You're gathering all the pieces together, their medical history, current mental health challenges, what's going on in their life, and where they want to be.
Then comes the planning phase. This is where you and your client create a treatment plan together. But unlike traditional plans that are pretty much set in stone, these are more like guidelines that can bend and flex depending on how things change.
Oh, flex, sort of like how I've noticed you think traffic lights are mere suggestions.
Well, you got it as.
Well, that's why I stay off the road when you're driving. The implementation phase is where the rubber meets the road. See what I did there? You're putting everything into action, but always keeping an eye on how things are going and making tweaks as needed.
And throughout all of this, you're constantly evaluating, not in a rigid, formal way, but more like checking in regularly to ensure everything's working just how they should.
Right. So let's talk about some of the tools associated with this model, like having a Swiss Army knife, except with therapy approaches. You've got different tools and you pick the right one for each situation. The therapeutic approach within this model emphasizes adaptability and personalization while maintaining evidence based practices.
Exactly. One of our key approaches is ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, which I hope you've studied as it can show up on your licensing exam. Think of it as helping clients be present in the moment, accepting their thoughts and feelings without getting stuck, and it keeps them moving towards their goals, even when things get really, really tough.
Which goes along with the motivational interviewing, which is all about having meaningful conversations about what changes the client themselves want to make and what might be holding them back, like being a supportive coach rather than the directive expert.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's something I love about this model, Eric. It's all about putting the client in the driver's seat. The client-centered approach means following their leads and adjusting your methods to fit their life.
And we use care mapping, which sounds all fancy schmancy, but is really just a way to keep track of all the moving parts of the client's care. You create a detailed care pathway that can be adapted based on client needs while maintaining communication channels between all those team members we talked about. It helps that you'll ensure everybody's on the same page so nothing falls through the cracks. And that shared decision making facilitates collaborative care planning.
Right.
You'll present treatment options, discuss potential benefits and risks, then incorporate client preferences into care decisions using the various decision aids and tools.
Right. And we've got some really helpful assessment tools in the FlexCare model for checking how things are going. One of my favorites is the patient activation measure, which helps us understand how confident a client feels in managing their own mental health. It also provides insights into engagement levels and identifies areas that need additional support. Which one do you prefer, Eric?
Well, I like the care transitions measure as a great way to ensure clients feel supported when they move between different types of care or they work with different team members, like having a safety net to catch any potential gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the functional independence measure, which helps assessing clients' functional status and independence in daily activities.
Right.
It can guide care planning, resource allocation, and provides objective measures for progress. So, if you're asked, say, on a licensing exam about the FlexCare model, remember patient activation measure, care transition measure, functional independence measure.
Okay, now let's share a short case study about a client named Sandy. She came to therapy feeling completely overwhelmed with balancing work and life, plus dealing with intense daily anxiety. Using the Flex Care model, we first assessed her situation inside and out. Then, knowing she had an overwhelming schedule, we set up a mixture of in person and online sessions.
And the cool thing was, it could be adjusted as things went along. We switched to more online sessions when she had a particularly busy month at work. And when she was going some more intensive challenges, we increased the frequency of the in person.
Well, exactly. And by staying flexible and responsive, Sandy was able to develop coping strategies that actually fit into her real life. Along the way, we checked her progress using the assessments we mentioned earlier. And she didn't have to completely reorganize her schedule or life to make therapy work. Therapy, again, adapted to her.
Right. So, what are the big takeaways from all this?
Well, first off, the FlexCare model is all about combining personalization with practicality. It's like having a custom fit solution that can still work with the real world constraints of clients' busy lives.
And it's about meeting clients where they are, both literally and figuratively. Sometimes that means online, sometimes in person, sometimes a mix. Key is staying adaptable while maintaining quality care, like you're always going on about with your public sushi.
Yep, Kai really does maintain quality care and keeping that salmon wasabi ratio in check.
Well, it's making me hungry just thinking about all that quality care you get.
Well, the research supports that too.
The research about sushi?
Well, that too, yeah. So
Okay.
when we're using the flexible approach, we see better engagement and better outcomes.
And here's what I think is really game changing about what we've been talking about. The approach makes therapy accessible to anybody who would otherwise face insurmountable barriers due to their scheduling constraints or geographic location. It really makes it so that more people can get the mental health care they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for joining us today, everyone. Remember, just like we want our clients to be flexible and adaptable, we need to bring the same spirit to how we deliver therapy.
Amen. So until next time, keep growing and adapting in your practice. And remember, there's no one size fits all in therapy. So don't be afraid to be flexible and to adjust as you need to. And remember,
It's in there.
it's in there.